as the leader. So that's amazing. Plan development implementation process is currently at 56%. So we've got some improvement to do there. 1685 validation requests have received up from 1533. We have 246 denied. So we really do have an amazing validation approval rate of 85%. So we've been really steady with that pretty much the entire time. And then we do have 159 submissions that were submitted in error. So please pay attention whenever you are submitting those submissions so that you don't receive a denial. And then MAP success stories are live and active, and we need more content. I know you guys have probably heard from me and Carly and Bree wanting to know more about our MAPS participants and showcasing them. We have so many amazing stories that are happening from participants that need quite a bit of assistance to participants that don't need as much. And this is what makes MAP so much fun, because we get to serve everybody. So we have the Helps Me's progressing, and the 3 stories that are being scheduled. We have Lorena with PDI, Virginia with St. John's, and then we have Austin with Emory Valley.
Sorry, I was muted. Good morning, everyone. We wanted to give you some information and some reminders about the training requirements for the MAPS program. So recent audits have confirmed that not all provider agency staff are compliant right now with the required training. So provider organizations are encouraged to audit your staff training to confirm that all training has been completed and that you have confirmation of those trainings. Note that initial staff who completed in-person orientations with us have 2 options. They can go ahead and retake those orientations in Relias, which we encourage. There are some quizzes and things that are completed with those, and then you will have that in Relias as part of your transcript. Or you can secure an in-service signed by your regional transition guide that will confirm that you attended one of those in-person orientations. We can discuss this with you at your monthly check-ins that are coming up. And this is going to be important for all future training audits by DDA, that we have confirmation you attended those. And just a reminder that there is an updated training matrix, and to make sure that you are referring to that when you're making sure that all training has been completed for your staff. So the MAP specific training, we wanted to just remind you of what those are. So all MAP staff should have completed the following training. There's MAPS Orientation 1, MAPS Orientation 2, and MAPS Orientation 3, as well as VCRM Basic and VCRM Advanced. And then there are the AbleLink Smart Living Application Suite trainings on Visual Impact and Endeavor, as well as the Wayfinder Travel training, which is called the Community Navigation Certification. And then we are now adding VCRM recertification. You should have seen correspondence about that, and that there is a basic recert that's going to teach you how to use that new platform. So it's a really important training as we transition to the new platform, and that is now available. There was a form sent out, and many of you have already completed it, but just a reminder, if you have not, please get registered for the basic recertification training. We have put the deadline of March 28th, so you have a month to get those completed. And again, really important so we can transition to the new platform. And then VCRM Advanced will be available mid-March, and that's going to be using that same platform. So instead of having to attend a live course, the VCRM Advanced will be the same as Basic, where you go through the videos on your own.
Thank you, Carly and Rachel. Really excited to see that all of those trainings are available, and provider staff are working to ensure that you guys have hit all of those key classes. And some of our observations is just it's very apparent those staff that have completed those trainings, they're able to speak the language to the participants and achieve those milestones with greater success. And so we really just encourage all provider organizations to ensure that your staff are adequately trained in all of those trainings that are available. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the exception requests. Really excited that since we've evolved within the MAPS program, we're experiencing more opportunities for some of these exception request processes. It shows that we're providing the most person-centered supports possible. And you guys, I just want you guys to be familiar with what the process is, what it's intended to do, and how it could potentially benefit those participants that are within your program. As always, all of our resources are made available on the MAPS website, and the MAPS Exception Resource Guide is also available there, and it dives in a little bit more to some of the exception request possibilities that we make accessible to the participants. There are, in essence, 3 exception requests that are available. One is a budget extension, or we often use the terminology on-hold request. The second is a milestone repeat request. And the third is a family member that actively delivers supports for the MAPS participants. So these are the broad categories. I do want to take a little bit of time and dive into some of these a little bit so we get a better understanding of what those intentions are with these kinds of exception requests. The on hold, which is the first one, or the budget extension, this provides that framework for maintaining services and supports for people in the program during those extenuating circumstances, which include but are not limited to behavioral crises, medical emergencies, provider capacity, or other circumstances outside of the MAPS person-supported control. We know that the time sensitivity of MAPS is so important for the MAPS participants that if there's opportunities to ensure that that MAPS participants gets all 3 years of access, that's what this is really intended to do. Things occur within that MAPS person's life that we want to be sure that if those events happen, they don't lose that valuable time, and providers have the adequate time to deliver those much needed supports for those participants. We've identified a few circumstances that may fall into this category. For example, if an individual experiences a medical emergency in which you're unable to deliver services for an extended period of time, that would be a perfect example of when a participant and the support team would be able to pursue an exception request to add more time on the back end of that person's annual budget so that they can get 3 years worth. And so these are some of those examples. You'll see medical emergencies, natural disasters, if there's a family emergency or other personal emergency, behavioral crises, unforeseen circumstances, the circumstances out of the control, and provider capacity. We've seen a number of exception requests come in where a person may have been waiting for 60 or 90 days before a provider can begin those services. That's a perfect opportunity for us to credit that participant that time back to ensure that they have adequate time to work towards those milestones, all with the intention of ensuring that person has as much time as possible. The way that we do this is we review those exception requests, and then we credit time on the back end of that budget cycle. For example, if somebody were to enroll on January 1st, their year 1 budget cycle would end December 31st. Well, if we review a budget extension request and we grant an additional 60 days, we would push out the back end of that year 1 budget 60 days beyond December 31st. And so now you're talking around February 28th or March 1st, in which that participant would be able to have the end of their budget cycle 1. Now their budget cycle 2 would obviously begin after the budget cycle 1. So it in essence just pushes that budget cycle out the first year of the program, and it extends when that budget cycle would begin year 2 and or year 3. All of these requests, in the event they're approved, the IC, the innovation coordinator, will continue to maintain communication with that participant during those periods of requests. And the whole intention here is that the innovation coordinator can monitor when those services can resume. We don't want to leave somebody sitting out any longer than absolutely necessary. So while a provider's supports may be put on pause temporarily because of a medical emergency or a behavioral crisis or what have you, the Innovation Coordination Agency would continue to monitor and check in with those participants routinely to determine when those services could resume. And again, any approved time is just added on the back end of that planning cycle, which extends that cycle and the subsequent cycles as well. Those are the majority of the requests that we receive, is just to ensure that the participants get as much time towards that 3 years as possible. A really exciting progression, however, is we're seeing a couple more of the next exception type, which is a milestone repeat exception request. we recognize that participants may encounter various factors which impact their ability to maintain that milestone independence on the first attempt, or they may need to just repeat it based on various factors. And they can include if health issues of the participant changes, if there's a personal circumstance that changes with them. So, for example, a significant life change, such as housing instability, family emergency, house relocation, or other personal challenges. There are certain circumstances in which a person may experience a loss of milestone independence that would trigger the ability for us to say, well, we need to get back in there and repeat that milestone that may have been validated in a previous year cycle. Learning pace or a support system change. If there's a change in the participant support network, such as a loss or caregiver or transition to a new support team, these are some of those examples in which we may repeat a milestone exception. Now, again, these experiences are often when a participant will achieve validation during 1 year of the program, but based on those factors, they will benefit from repeating them and achieving greater levels of independence in a subsequent year. This is not for a request to carry over a milestone from 1 year to the next. And I want you guys to understand that distinction. If within 1 year plan, a person chooses personal hygiene and they don't achieve that milestone in year one and they want to carry it over to year two, that's not recognized as a milestone repeat. That's essentially a carryover into the following year. These are really reserved for those circumstances when we have gone through the validation process, payment has been rendered, and the participant still experiences something inadvertent that they would benefit from repeating that milestone in a subsequent year. We have a couple examples that we've demonstrated. One was an independent travel. You guys may all be familiar with Warwick. You've probably seen his video. Well, I'm proud to report during year one of Warwick's program, he had his independent travel milestone successfully validated. Well, through circumstances and a relocation from one home to another, the public mode of transport that he was using was no longer an available option. And so in that instance, we wanted to get back involved with Warwick, introducing him to the available transportation options within the new community. And that was a perfect example for us to get back in, repeat that milestone, and ensure that Warwick can safely and independently navigate his new community. We had a separate scenario where a participant expressed greater interest in cooking more and continued to expand on recognizing and utilizing emergency personnel in the home and safety milestone. Perfect example of where the milestone was validated, yet that person continued to recognize, I've got additional work that I can continue to progress with. And so with the use of the team and the progression, we're going to progress with that participant repeating that home and safety milestone. Now, these scenarios have been very eye-opening to the department. They've solicited some wonderful conversations in how we are protecting our participants, the funding that is associated, and we're always looking towards the future. And so when we get these requests from the innovation coordinator, we will review them and deny them. We will do a thorough review on the previous milestone that was validated. We will review the milestone goal statement and the achievement statement. We will see what enabling technologies were recommended within that initial plan. We will see all of those dynamics and see if there's adequate justification for the request in the repeat exception. And if it's approved, we've identified some general standards that we've been applying to the ones that have been recently approved. And so we wanted to give you guys some of the language that we're progressing with in these instances when we have some of those needs to conduct a milestone repeat exception. The first is we evaluate that milestone goal statement. We're going to request a new one. If we're going to repeat a milestone, we're going to request that milestone goal statement be updated, but it needs to reflect that previously developed skill from the initial milestone. We want to draw that connectivity from where the person started in year one, their achievement statement, and now if we're repeating it, we should be able to take that new milestone goal statement and see where they were, what they've achieved, and how we, in essence, are going to continue to expand on what we've already validated. We would request that at that point, a full skills assessment on all of those milestone metrics are conducted. What is the current level of need for that participant to achieve all of those all of the independence within those metrics within that milestone. And that would be requested prior to the provider agency implementing that service associated. Next, we're going to introduce a sustainability plan. The thing that we want to avoid here is getting into the same cycle year after year after year. And so is there something we missed within that first opportunity of implementing that milestone validation that we can develop a sustainability plan? What did we miss, and how can we ensure that we are protecting ourselves as much as possible so that individual can sustain that milestone if this emergency occurs again? Basically, we're always looking towards, at the end of 3 years, we're gone. How can we set that person up to where they don't need us anymore? And if we experience that need for a milestone repeat, let's go ahead and identify if there's a sustainability plan that we can put in place to minimize any future requests. And then lastly, we're going to ask that the provider agency conduct another skills assessment post-service, so that now we've got the skills assessment prior to the service, the skills assessment after the service, which should show that independent growth. And that's what's going to be able to be used as additional evidence when we're validating that milestone repeat request. This is something that is living, breathing, and evolving. And so we've got a couple of milestone repeat requests right now, and we've exchanged this communication with those providers, and we're going to test it. We're going to see if this is going to hit the mark. And we just didn't want anyone else who submitted a milestone repeat request to see some of this for the first time. This is sort of evolving as we're experiencing some of this. Really excited about it, though. I think it's going to provide some tremendous opportunities. The last exception request that we make possible is for a family member to deliver supports. And in many support programs, there are policies that typically prohibit immediate family members from providing those direct supports to their loved ones. Obviously, it reduces conflict of interest and ensures a professional standards of care. However, in our program and in certain circumstances, if there's somebody living in a remote area and there just isn't any staff that are available, we would make the accommodation that that provider agency staff could hire a family member and they could deliver those MAP staff. This would allow those family members to deliver direct support to ensure the continuity of care and foster the trust in the communication. We've not experienced any of this yet, but it's certainly possible. And we just wanted to ensure that provider agencies knew all of the type of exception requests that we are actively pursuing now within that exception resource guide. A lot of exciting things. Now, I would also just remind everyone that all of these exception requests are submitted by the Innovation Coordination Agency directly to the Department of Disabilities and Aging using the form that we've requested. Those ICs are very familiar with this process. So we just wanted to ensure that the provider agencies knew of this possibility in the event your participants could benefit from one of these exception requests. So if you feel as though your participant could, know that this process exists, work with your innovation coordinator, and they will be sure to help and get those exception requests submitted. Excuse me, I'm going to turn it over to Bree. Bree, go ahead.
Thanks, Jay. So we're talking about the MAPS enabling technology billing scenarios. So we are having just a couple things we are navigating through as you all are continuing to utilize the enabling technology supports for your participants. And so we are beginning to encounter some situations where we have two MAPS providers who are delivering direct services. For example, we have some MAPS provider agencies who also serve as DDA or MAPS tech vendors or tech providers. So in the instance, we now all have a provider with a driving simulator in West, Middle, and East. And so you all might be utilizing that driving simulator service from that other MAPS provider agency. So in trying to help the enabling technology billing scenario be easier. So for example, Jay is working with Journeys and he wants to access the driving simulator. So in Middle, our driving simulator is at the ARC of Davidson County. So Journeys is going to help coordinate Jay going up to ARC to utilize that driving simulator. In this scenario, since the ET solution provider is a contracted maps provider, instead of Journeys billing DDA for that driving simulator usage for Jay, ARC can bill DDA directly on Jay's behalf for his enabling technology budget. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So in other ET related scenarios, we fund the reimbursement through to the MAPS contracted entity, and the ET funding is passed through the MAPS contracted provider to the vendor delivering the service. So again, in this case, we have two MAPS contracted providers and a potential ongoing period of time, resulting in consideration for ARC of Davidson County and Journeys and the participant. So we considered a couple of options and ultimately landed on option 2 as the best case scenario. So the first consideration was, should the participant go through their sessions while Journeys pays the ARC of Davidson County? So the ARC of Davidson sends an invoice to Journeys, who then requests reimbursement from the MAPS program budget with the provided invoices once the service is complete. Or the scenario I just discussed as, can the ARC of Davidson County directly request MAPS ET funding without Journeys having to act as that middleman? In this case, it would be possible for two MAPS providers to request a claim for ET funding through one person's budget. So in this scenario that we discussed, it's important to start out with the concept that we are dealing with two MAPS contracted agencies. So that's the important piece of information. Both of these agencies have to be contracted MAPS providers, both of which have access to direct funding from the MAPS invoicing processes that other tech vendors do not have access to. And it is in this setup that would allow us to consider ARC of Davidson County or other MAPS contracted providers to be able to bill DDA directly for their ET services and supports, even though the participant is receiving supports through Journeys or whatever provider agency. So when we are asked down the line why we are permitting the ET vendor to bill DDA directly for these solutions, that's why. They are both MAPS contracted entities. So for example, Simply Home is not a MAPS vendor, so they cannot bill us directly. This will open the possibility for those other MAPS ET providers. So Miller Rich, Star Center, Madison Haywood, Breakthrough, etc., to bill us directly for their ET solutions when delivering services to participants served by other MAPS provider agencies. So here's what we would like to see with this particular scenario. You threw me off for a second, Rachel. ARC of Davidson County providing driving simulator training to a MAPS individual for Journeys. So ARC of Davidson County would submit the pre-claim with the tech plan that outlines the targeted max use of the driving simulator services for a period of up to 90 days. So we are not going to look at annual submissions. We are going to look at this in a 90-day increment period. So the IC will approve the pre-claim in accordance with budget review and tech plan approval. The ARC of Davidson will provide the supports for a period of up to 90 days, so 3 months of service. Then ARC of Davidson County would submit a post-claim validation submission requesting reimbursement for those 3 months of service. We would require ARC of Davidson County to provide some type of sign-in sheet and/or driving simulation progress notes for each lesson completed to serve as proof the service was completed. ARC can then invoice DDA directly, and the IC will credit that expenditure to the participant's annual ET budget upon approval. In the event the participant wishes to continue the simulations, another pre-claim would be necessary for the next 3 months, and then repeat the process if that would like to be continued. Brittany, I see your hand.
Yeah, I had a quick question regarding the tech plan. So when they are going to be submitting the tech plan for the pre-claim, is it going to be a separate tech plan just for the simulator, or would it be one that we have like maybe for devices we're ordering? Like I have one recently, I added the devices plus the simulator onto it, or how would that process work?
Milton, I saw you come off camera. Do you want to take that question?
Yes, this is a great question. It's a question that I can certainly answer for you. An enabling tech plan is a individualized tech plan for one individual. And so what we are asking is that each individual has one enabling tech plan. And so we want people to add enabling technology solutions to current tech plans that are already in place. So I guess to answer your question, you should add the driver simulator technology solution to the technology plan that's already in place for that individual and update it accordingly. We want all of the technology solutions that the person is using in one tech plan that can be shared across provider agencies and provider supports that are supporting this individual.
Okay, yeah, because currently the one I just did has the devices and it has the simulator, like 4 sessions on there. So it'd just be upon us at Journeys to share that with the ARC. Correct? That's how I'm understanding it.
Yes, that is
Okay,
correct. And then
perfect.
then in the future, if anything needs to be amended, you can amend that same tech plan with new current information, and then re-disseminate the new enabling technology plan according to any changes or revisions.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Milton.
Sorry, Bree. I got on here too early before. Okay, so project updates. Bree has been doing a wonderful job with the PSCP plan development. We're hoping that will come out probably after the referral process, but we don't have a timeline specifically yet. She's also doing a great job with peer mentoring, and we can now announce that the contracts were awarded to ETSU and ARC of Tennessee. I had some providers asking about that, and mom was the word. So now you guys can see where the contracts are going. For me, I've been working on conservatorships and the enrollment packet. We do have all of our consents digitally on the application now. So that was one thing that was kind of a heavy lift, but that is kind of completed now. The IC solicitation, we hope that that will go out. I believe we said April 1st. The referral process, the testing has been completed as of yesterday. We had a lot of positive responses. I just want to share that we were able to get a provider match within 2 hours. So this is going to really cut down on all of the delays that are happening with our participants. So we're very, very excited. And we're getting matches now before the participants come to the Charles Lee Center. And I know I've gotten some matches. I think Bree's gotten some matches as well. So we're hoping to have those matches already before they refer to Charles Lee so that you guys will have those participants already with you. And then that way we'll know who needs a participant and not. So we're really, really excited about that. Carly's been making amazing progress with the virtual resource guide, virtual services resource guide. If you guys are not on the email for those committees, please let her know. She's also doing an amazing job with the Stakeholder Advisory Committee. I know we had a meeting with them. What was it? I think it was last week. And we had some participants on there. And then the VCRM progression. So that is progressing well. The basic platform is live. So just remember to complete those. And then for the DDA program updates, we're looking at contract renewals, CMS amendment request, MAPS program resource manual, quality assurance program development. The initial meetings are occurring, likely to start with provider training, and then independent housing initiative. So we are, I don't know if we've hired a housing person yet, but we are looking for a MAPS housing guide, or I'm not sure what the title is. Jay, you can go to the next page. So MAPS meetings. I know that my providers in East got a bunch of emails for holds for these meetings. So I will try to send those separately from the ones that Jay receives. So on 3/12, CLC is going to do a validation workshop for us for the provider-led lunch and learn. On 3/28, we're going to have another provider information session on April 16th. This is where Bree is going to present to us the new PSCP amendment, or that's the update, excuse me. 425, we have another provider information session, May 30th. And then 618, we have provider-led lunch and learn. If we have any providers that would like to lead that lunch and learn, please let us know. You know, it could be anything from what you're doing with virtual services, anything that you're noticing. I know we've seen some really amazing, things come through when it comes to validations. It could be anything like that. So let us know if you're interested in presenting anything like that for the network that would help everyone. And then Jay just asked if anyone's developed an app of any kind. And then 627, we have another provider information session. And Jay, you can go to the next page. And that is all that completes our training for today and our meeting for today. Does anybody have any questions before we get off of here?
Always great when we can end a little bit early, guys. Hope everyone has a great Friday. Get outside and enjoy this weather. You guys have a great weekend. We'll see you later. Bye.